Dr. Fred Singer is the first and still the most prominent global warming skeptic in the world. He is one of the most respected scientists in the world. He's been published over 200 times in peer-reviewed journals. Back in the 1960s and 70s, he appeared on the cover of Time magazine, Life magazine, and U.S. News and World Report. He was one of the world's original rocket scientists. He helped put the satellites up. He helped discover the technology that ultimately led to putting men on the moon. He was the first director of the National Weather Satellite Service. He was vice chairman of the National Advisory Committee for Oceans and Atmosphere. He was a professor of environmental sciences at the University of Virginia. He's the author or co-author of many, many books. He was writing books on global warming in the 1980s, before most of us realized it was an issue. He's the co-author with Dennis Avery, who is here, of Unstoppable Global Warming Every 1,500 Years. It's a wonderful book, a New York Times best-selling book. It's been translated into Spanish, and over 100,000 copies of that book are in circulation. He's also a co-author of Climate Change Reconsidered, which is now in its 4th volume, and a 5th volume is on its way. He's the founder of the Non-Governmental International Panel on Climate Change, or NIPSI. He's the founder of the Science and Environmental Policy Project. He is an elected fellow of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, of the American Geophysical Union, of the American Physical Society, and the American Institute for Aeronautics and Astronomics. Some of you are probably familiar with that one. At an age when he could have quietly retired and just accepted honorary degrees from universities around the world and awards and softball interviews with fans of his work from the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, instead, Fred Singer decided that he would speak out against what he saw as the politicization of science on the climate change issue. In his popular writings, in his public speaking, by encouraging other scientists, and by educating and coaching non-scientists like me, he had a huge impact on the global warming skeptics movement. If there's any person in the world responsible for the development of a skeptics movement on global warming, it's Dr. S. Fred Singer. Fred is a giant. He's a hero. He is a wonderful human being. If any of you have had a chance to talk to him and get to know him, you immediately know this is a nice guy and a very generous guy. So it's my honor to present Fred Singer with the Climate Science Lifetime Achievement Award. Fred Singer.
Thank you, Joe, for your generous introduction, and thank you, kind friends, because there are many, many friends here today. Last night we had kind of a rehearsal. Our good friend Harley Mooney presented me with a ceramic plate and a Lifetime Achievement Award going back 1,500 years. I told him I didn't really remember all of that, and we compromised on 90 years. Anyway, I spent this morning writing down some of the things that were important in my life, and I decided finally that I would talk about only a few of these because I have a 5-minute limit. So what are the really highlights? Joe already mentioned the fact that I ran the weather satellite program for the United States. And I think that was the important technical highlight that got me into the climate business. Because it's quite obvious that the satellite was the way to observe the Earth's atmosphere and to solve many of the problems of climate change. It was important also because it introduced me to two of the giants with whom I was associated during their lifetime, Fred Seitz and Roger Revelle. You already heard about Fred Seitz and you heard about Roger Revelle, so you know who these gentlemen were. I learned much from them. They were my friends, and I was inspired by them. In reaction to all the hype about global warming, we set up the Science and Environmental Policy Project in 1990, and in order to carry the work further, we finally set up the non-governmental International Panel on Climate Change, and I'm happy to see Willie Soon here, who was involved in this in the very beginning. We've now been fortunate in finding a publisher for our books, the Heartland Institute, and Joe Bast, who's given a lot of his personal time to editing and improving our work and finding our co-authors and co-editors, Craig Itzo and Bob Carter. We're very fortunate in having located and co-opted those two gentlemen and the Heartland Institute and all of its resources, because the publication of the NIPCC reports has been one of the highlights of my life, and I look forward to seeing these reports achieve their purpose in convincing the world that the climate skeptics have the right approach to life and to climate and to everything that goes with it. Thank you very much.